So let's walk through Container Engine. In this example, I'll be setting up a guest book. I just absolutely love guest books. And what we're going to do is set up a Redis master, 2 Redis workers, and 3 PHP front ends. And all of that code, all of those components, will be wrapped in individual containers. Traditionally, if I were setting up this infrastructure on virtual machines, I would set up a virtual machine for each infrastructure component. So I'd set up a virtual machine for my database server, for my web server, etc. But what we're going to do is work with a container cluster. One cluster that all of my containers will be scheduled into. So creating a container cluster is very easy with Container Engine. I'm simply going to click this button, and we can go ahead and define our cluster. So I'll just go ahead and give it a name. I can select the zone that I want. I can select the machine type for the virtual machine nodes that will comprise my cluster, and I can set the number of virtual machines I'd like to use. So this is really important. What I'm doing is creating one cluster, and it will have multiple nodes as well as a master VM. Then I'll use Container Engine to schedule my containers into the cluster. So all I have to do is click the Create button, but I've already gone ahead and done that. So let's switch over to my code and we can see what we're actually scheduling. So I'm going to move over to my text editor, and here you can see I have my Redis worker controller JSON. This defines how I want Container Engine to schedule my containers. And what I have here is a replication controller. So I'm declaring that I want Container Engine to always have 2 replicas of my Redis worker, and I want each one of those replicas to get 20% of a CPU core. You'll notice that I didn't define what virtual machine I want this scheduled on. I don't have to think about that. I'm just working with the cluster. So I've defined my requirements for each infrastructure component. So you can see I have the front end set up here, and these are my front end requirements. I've got my Redis master requirements, and then I have my Redis worker requirements. So now we can have Container Engine schedule our controllers. I'm going to switch over to the command line, and we're going to run a script. So let's go ahead and list our scripts, and I'm going to simply run cluster schedule. Now you can see what it's doing. It's scheduling our Redis master containers, our worker containers, our PHP front-end containers, and finally it's provisioning a load balancer and opening up some ports in our firewall. So all it's doing is telling Container Engine to run the containers based on the JSON files that we just looked at. So here I have the IP address of my load balancer. I'll simply grab that IP address and switch over to my web browser. And here's my guest book. So that's Container Engine. It allows me to very easily set up a container cluster, and then it allows me to easily schedule my containers into that cluster based on the needs that I've declared in the JSON files that we looked at.